In the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. It's the day that the Lord has made. You know, we celebrate these Theodores. You're looking for Prophet Zacharias. I was doing the same thing. I don't think he's up there. I don't think he's up there. It's okay. It's all right. There's like a ton of prophets. And so that we're not going to always have them up there. I'll get to Zacharias. Don't worry, son. We'll get there. When we celebrate the Theodores, we celebrate them in different ways. You know, there's one Theodore celebrated today, another one celebrated on February 17th, another one celebrated, and St. Theodore the Recruit is celebrated again on the first Saturday of Great Lent. And so, like, it seems like in the month of February, depending on how early Pascha is or how late it is, in the month of February, depending, we might get Theodore and Theodore and Theodore and Theodore every week, which is great. It's beautiful, don't get me wrong, but it's just something that we have to keep in mind. Who are these Theodores, right? And there are two different ones. One of them was a general. The other one was a person that was helping to recruit people in the armed forces or in the army or whatever. He wasn't necessarily always enlisted as a soldier, but he was the one that was kind of like like helping those individuals. He was kind of like recruited to do certain things, but he's not remembered as like the big general that this Theodore was, the one that we celebrate today. And so when we celebrate him, we just need to remember we're celebrating a man that was living in a time under the Emperor Licinius, where Christianity was illegal. That's not a foreign story to us. That's many of the early martyrs are being commemorated during a period of time where Christianity was illegal. And you know, these men and women were secretly Christians because they couldn't be publicly Christians because they would not be able to continue. They had families, they had this. It wasn't that they were afraid to confess Christ, but they didn't always run to meet it. Not every martyr ran to meet his fate or her fate. They waited until there was a point in time where they were called to do this. And then there's individuals like St. Theodore who, whenever it came time for certain commemorations and certain idols to be preserved and, you know, whatever, he went to the emperor and Theodore, who was a Christian, he said, give me the idols. This way no one will, you know, I'll keep them safe. You know, that kind of a thing. And the emperor was happy. He's one of his most trusted generals, that Theodore would ask for these idols. And, you know, because you know, all of these pagans at the time were very superstitious, so they didn't want to trust just anyone. So here's Theodore, didn't know he was a Christian, came and asked for the idols. And Theodore promptly took them home, smashed them, and then took the jewels and the gold that were in those idols and distributed it to the poor. So, you know, here he was basically saying, what's worth it, the only thing that this is worth for is that some of the poor people will be able to buy food and take care of their families and take care of themselves. And of course the emperor didn't like that very much, and that's what kind of started the whole process of his martyrdom. But still, here we have this individual who was not afraid of his Christianity, was not afraid of what was happening, was hoping that maybe he could get away with it, maybe at this point, but like, you know, he just had enough. He had just had enough at that point, to the point where he had to do something that was Christ-like, which was destroy the idols and take care of the poor. And the connection between him and Prophet Zechariah is the fact that Zechariah lived at a period of time during the reign of the king, it's a mouthful, Zerubbabel, and he was the one that was given the grace by God to inform the king that it was time to rebuild or to kind of refashion the Jewish temple that had been destroyed in different eras. And so here we have one saint that is being kind of called by God to do the Christ-like thing here and to make sure that the poor are being taken care of. And then the other prophet who's also being called by God to listen to hear the voice of the Lord, to do what is right. Jesus Christ wasn't Jesus Christ at that point in time. He was the pre-eternal Logos at that time, but it's still God the Son speaking to Zechariah and telling him that it's time for you to do this other thing. Now, the temple is supposed to take care of the poor. The temple is supposed to take care of the people that are destitute. And sometimes the temple did that nicely. And in the time of Christ, we know that the temple stopped doing that. And Jesus had his words with the temple at that point to make sure that they were getting back on track, to make sure that they knew, hey, this isn't what I told you to do with this temple. This is what I told you to do with this place. And St. Theodore, the same thing. These idols, this is not what we're supposed to be doing. This is not what we're supposed to be doing. And both of them had this beautiful, in the cause of what was right, this beautiful, it was really a joy. It was really a joy for them to be able to make sure that these things take place. Now, we're in this period of time where normally we're, in this Triodion period, celebrating these two individuals. So there's other things to be said about them, Saint Theodore and the prophet Zechariah, when we're talking about images like we would hear in some of the weeks of the Triodion in the Gospels, which will say, tear down this temple. That's one of the Gospels right before Lent starts. Tear down this temple, and in 3 days I will rebuild it. Or other prophecies that may have happened during that period of time when we start the Triodion. We just happen to be outside of that because Pascha is so late. So this is sort of an anomaly that we're celebrating this in a period of time where there's no Triodion that's happening, and so we just get to see them for what they are. We get to see them for who they happen to be. A commander, a person who was not willing to give up his entire estate. He was not afraid to give up his entire estate. He was not afraid to make sure that Jesus Christ was always first in his life. And the prophet Zacharias, who literally did what God told him to do. I want you to preach this message to these people. I want you to tell the king Zerubbabel that it's time, hey, you got to make the temple. We need to have our hearts open in this day and age. We need to have our hearts open. Sometimes people talk about having an open mind. And that's good to have an open mind. We should have an open mind. One of my neighbors actually has that on their their license plate. It's an open mind, whatever. And it's great. We should have an open mind. This needs to be open. This needs to be open. When we have an open mind, we can think. It's nice to think, but it's also dangerous sometimes. But when we have an open heart, the way the prophet Zacharias did, the way that the St. Theodore did, when we have an open heart, at the very center of our being, this is where Christ speaks to us. Can he speak to us up here? Yes, but we'll mess it up. But when he speaks to us down here, that's when the message really hits home. That's what we need so often in this world during these days. So, we commemorate St. Theodore, we commemorate the prophet Zacharias. We are on the feast day, actually on the day of the holy martyrs of Russia, the Tsar Nicholas and his entire family, cherry picking on the date itself, even though we're on the next day. Keep these individuals in mind. They were not afraid. They were not afraid to serve the Lord with gladness, even if it meant giving up of themselves. So may we have their intercessions today and all days as we continue, not really to prepare for Great Lent, because we're not really in that period yet, but while we're in this period where we are in preparation of the preparation.